Good night, Andy. Child's Play 2019. I'll be honest, didn't see this one coming. In a world where we have constant remakes, reboots, sequels, and recycles of properties, I did not see this one coming, and I was actually really excited once they announced it. So this one caught me off guard, which was pretty cool actually. I enjoyed it. So there's a lot of differences between this one and the original. One of the biggest things is just the main concept. There is no doll possession in this one. This is just a total reimagining from pretty much from the bottom up. Just takes the concept of a killer doll, and that's about it. The rest it's expanded upon in its own original ideas. So this is a reimagining where Chucky is actually an AI that has just been corrupted, and that concept really worked well in this. I didn't know how that could be done well. I mean, I had an idea, but you have the original, the impression of that, and you're so focused on serial killer doll that I didn't know how it was going to be done, and I was pleasantly surprised. Something that I didn't think that any Chucky movie could pull off, but this one does it, is you feel sympathetic for Chucky, for the doll, for the killer in this movie. And that's great. I think that's something that it's just, you know, as time has gone on, we've gotten more sympathetic villains. We've gotten more villains that, you know, you can kind of see where they're coming from. You don't want to necessarily be on their side, but you can understand their reasons for it. And they did that here. And there are many parts in this movie where I feel sorry for this doll. And unlike the first one, or the original series, where it's actually a person that was alive before being transferred into this doll. No, this Chucky has no soul. It's all artificial intelligence, yet you feel sorry for him. And that is fantastic that they did that. In this movie, the acting was really well done. I was actually very impressed. Everyone brought their A game to this, and that's really, I give them a lot of credit for that. I actually want to commend them for that, because I don't think this movie would have been nearly as enjoyable if the acting hadn't pulled me in as well. Another thing that this movie does really well that, again, I didn't expect it to do well is character building. It really takes its story seriously, and it actually builds upon all these characters. It actually takes time to get you familiar with Andy. It gives you time to get familiar with Andy's mom, the detective that's in this movie. You know these characters by the time the movie ends. You actually got to know these characters, and that's great. You even got to know Chucky himself, which, I mean, I still wouldn't hang out with the guy after after watching this, after the movie's done, but you still got to know him, which was really cool. So this movie is a sci-fi horror movie, and it is more horror than science fiction. However, it does throw in there, you know, a few questions that we have about, and a few fears that we have about technology today. So the fact that it addressed that, I think, was done really well, and I think that was a good thing. Even though this is a science fiction approach to the horror movie, the one thing that I have to say overall that I did enjoy about this movie is that even though it's vastly different on that concept, it still felt respectable to the original. The ending scene to this movie was crafted so well, and I just really loved how they did it. So they drop hints here and there in the movie, and in hindsight, I'm like, oh wow, I should have seen this coming the whole time. But no, I didn't pick up on him. But it is there, and it does kind of warn you into what it's leading up to. There have been so few movies lately that actually concentrate on that part of storytelling. Hey, if there's a big finale, you know, we're going to give you hints here, hints there, hints there. Now, this one didn't feel like they were beating it into your head, but most movies now, that's all they do. That's the only way they know how to introduce an ending, a finale. But this movie didn't do that. So it was well crafted. It really sets you up for it, and I gotta give them, again, great credit for that ending scene. What? Oh. Can't read my own handwriting, man, that's bad. So this being a horror movie, one thing that was a little odd, but still acceptable, at least for me. The kills were censored for the most part. There is gore, there is a lot of graphic detail, but they really left it up to your imagination. They do show a lot of blood, but they don't show a lot of the graphic outcomes of the kills. That being said, the jump scares, there's so few of them in this movie, but they were great. There is a great jump scare that I just loved in this movie that got faked out like 3 times before the actual jump scare happened. And it is a censored death as well, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. And that's great. A movie where jump scares are actually fun. That's how horror should be. That's how and so many horror movies just play it up to be a cheap scare. No, this is the way you have to do it. This isn't a perfect movie by any means. Let me talk about some negatives. So, first and foremost, the doll is ugly. It's gross. The design they went with. Now, you do get used to it more towards the end. There is no way any kid would want this thing. Like, before the transition to the murderous doll. No, there's no way I can see any kid begging their parents for this doll. You really have to suspend too much disbelief to accept that these dolls are this popular and that they are this high in demand when they look so hideous. Now, that being said, the look actually worked later on, like I said, after the transition has been made. It works for killer doll, but it doesn't work for, hey, sold out toys. Like, I would have really liked to see a design that was somewhere in between to where, like, even though I may have thought it was ugly, I can actually see little kids getting into it. But no kid would want these things. This movie is only 90 minutes long. And even though I just gave it a lot of good credit for character building, it does feel like it drags on for a little bit. 90 minutes. I thought this was a 2-hour-long movie once I got out of it, just because I just felt like I had been sitting there for 2 hours. It was not even that long. Ouch. Now, the good thing about that is when it does drag, that is very short-lived, and it does, after it loses its footing, it does straighten itself back up and it keeps on going forward. So at least it was a very short detour, but it does feel like it drags on somewhere in the middle there. Another thing I wasn't too big a fan of, especially since this is done so early in the movie, the way it gets presented on how Chucky is going to be transitioned, or I guess the setup that allows Chucky to transform into the murderous doll. That was pretty lame, but they kind of make up for it almost immediately after. I would have just preferred a little bit more weight to why Chucky's AI gets corrupted and why he turns out the way he is. This next point is actually one of those where it could be looked at as a bad thing or a good thing. For me, it's a negative, but I do recognize the positives within this. So, in this movie, a lot of the bad people get what's coming to them. Now, that's great for a movie. That's great for a lot of entertainment things. However, this movie actually just presented such a realistic perspective that came out to be a negative for me. Now, I did enjoy seeing these people get what's coming to them. However, that's not the way it works in real life. You know, a serial killer or a corrupt AI, I don't think would have a filter on who it would kill. So that's why I'm gonna list that as a negative. Now, not everyone that dies was a bad person. There are some innocent people that got killed in this, but they really emphasize the people that were just bad human beings to begin with. There's very little use of CGI. When it does use it really well. However, there's one shot towards the end of the film that just was a bit of a buzzkill. It just kind of took me out of the movie, and that's a real shame because overall I really enjoyed this movie. Chucky's look by the end of the movie, pretty good. CGI that was used at the end of the movie, that just one shot they could have just done without, in my opinion, but it is what it is. It didn't ruin the movie for me. So yeah, I didn't think that this one would be the one to break the low score record, but Child's Play 2019 gets a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I would actually recommend people watch this. Now, as much as I've seemed enthusiastic about this movie and excited, it's still one of those where I'd recommend you just watch in the daytime. I don't think it's worth a full price, but it is very enjoyable. Definitely worth watching in theaters, in my opinion. But go catch it matinee. Thank you guys for all your patience. As you can see in this video, I got a new microphone. Wasn't even trying to hide it in this video. Now in other videos, I will admit I probably will try to tuck it under the collar or something. But for right now, it's working and I am enjoying it. So let's get a little bit more equipment in the future and keep on making these things. As always, thank you. Thank you for the views. You guys are awesome. This has been DJ Myst. Peace.